Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned. Because it's Wednesday. That means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue on his channel will talk about the same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. And this week, we're talking about Conan and the Frost Giant's daughter, which we've talked about before. We've talked about this story on Epic Comic Book Wednesday before. It was a story written originally by Conan's creator, Robert E. Howard, and has been adapted into comic books several times. And the first time was the story that we had talked about before, which was for Marvel Comics, published in Savage Tales in the early 1970s. That was written by Roy Thomas. The artwork was by Barry Windsor Smith, and it was beautiful. Still, my favorite adaptation of this story was the Marvel Comics version, but there's another version which is almost as good. It might be just as good, actually. And that was the version published by Dark Horse Comics. You see, what happened was, in the mid-90s, when Marvel was a big old mess, Marvel lost the rights to Conan. I know, it's shocking. Marvel lost the rights to Conan. And there were no more Conan comic books for a while, which was a horrible tragedy. But in 2003, Dark Horse got the license to Conan, and they came out with their own Conan comic book called Conan. And I remember when I heard that this was going to happen, I was a little worried. I wasn't sure how Dark Horse was going to do with Conan. Would they give us a watered-down version of Conan, which is what I'm always worried about? And they did not. They gave us a gloriously wonderful version of Conan. And the Dark Horse run, overall, was pretty great. There was a point in time where it was kind of not so great. But overall, Dark Horse did very well with this character. But eventually they lost the license. Marvel got the license back. They had it for a couple years, and then they lost it again. Or just gave it up, really. And now Heroic Signature and Titan Books have the license, and they have their own very successful Conan comic book that's being published right now. But I have this particular story, The Frost Giant's Daughter, in this. It came out in Dark Horse's Conan issue number 2. I have it reprinted in this Marvel Epic Collection. There were a few Epic collections for this run of Conan. They reprinted not everything Dark Horse did, but they reprinted a pretty good amount, Marvel. All of the main series of Conan they reprinted in their Epic Collection line. And this is the first Epic Collection which has stories from 2003 to 2005. This has Conan, The Legend number 0, and Conan issues 1 through 19. This is a great book. If you're looking for this story that I will be talking about today, I'm not sure how easy this particular Epic Collection is to find, but it was reprinted a few times by Dark Horse. They had their own series of Conan reprints, and it was the first one that the Frost Giant's Daughter appeared in. And they also had their own thicker paperback omnibus that they reprinted it in, so you might be able to find that easier than you can find this. I'm not sure. I haven't looked for it. But these Epic collections were great, and like I said, Frost Giant's Daughter appeared in issue number 2. There was an issue 0, which introduced us to this version of the character, which was written by Kurt. I never can pronounce this name because I don't think I've ever actually heard it spoken. Kurt Busiek. It was either Busiek or Biziak. I don't know. Kurt Busiek or Biziak. Or Biziak. I don't know. But he's an excellent writer, and he does a great job with Conan. Then we have the artist Cary Nord, who just was fantastic. He's one of my favorite Conan artists. And we have just a beautiful issue 0 that introduces the character and the character's world, the Hyborian Age. And that's his first image of Conan. And it's fantastic. Nord's version of Conan changed over time. Conan doesn't look the same at the end of this epic collection as he does in the beginning. His version of Conan evolved, but it was always pretty fantastic. And like I said, I was a bit worried when I had heard that they were bringing back Conan because I thought it might be a watered down Conan. I need not have worried. That's the splash page for the first issue. It's completely awesome. Gloriously violent, as you want Conan to be. And so the first issue is fantastic. And what the first issue does is it gives you the backstory of why Conan is where he is in the beginning of The Frost Giant's Daughter in issue number 2, where there has been a battle. Well, why did that battle happen? Why is Conan there in the first place? The first issue gives you all that backstory that Robert E. Howard never did, because he just wrote the story, but you know, Robert E. Howard jumped around in time in his Conan stories. And so the backstory was never told, and that was filled in here. And they did a pretty great job. And then we get to issue number 2, where the story actually happens. That was the cover art for the second issue of Conan, where this story appears. And we start off right where Robert E. Howard's story does, in the snow with a bunch of bodies, because there has been a terrific battle. And there are only 2 survivors of the battle. One of those survivors is, of course, Conan, and he's squaring off at this rather large fellow. And so there's only the 2 of them left, one from each side, and they have to battle it out. And who do you suppose will win? It's Conan, and look at that grin on Conan's face. That's fantastic. I mean, the artwork in this is just beautiful. This is a beautiful issue. Such a great version of this story. And then we get this double page spread of the aftermath of the battle. And we have a weary Conan who's been, in the battle. The battle's been going on for a while. It took a while for all these people to kill each other. And he's the sole survivor, and he's exhausted. And he's all alone, but then this mysterious woman shows up, and that is our first view of the Frost Giant's daughter in this story. And she confuses Conan. What the hell are you doing out here? And look at that wonderful expression on Conan's face. Who is this mysterious woman? She's wandering around in the snow, naked. Shouldn't she be frozen to death? It's all very strange. And of course, she is the Frost Giant's daughter, and she uses her magic. Her whole thing is, she uses her magic to lure warriors off battlefields, and lures them to their doom, which is what she wants to do with Conan. And so she kind of taunts him a little bit, and the implication is that she's using her magic to kind of drive him wild. And she says, "Am I not beautiful?" And so she lures him across the snow. He's driven to lustful madness, and he ends up chasing her across the snow. And the way that is done is quite wonderful. All the art is fantastic in this. Dark Horse did a very interesting thing with their Conan comic book, in that when we have the captions, the font is all like from an old typewriter. And I always liked that, because it gives you the feeling of Robert E. Howard sitting at his typewriter writing the story. And yeah, it was always like that in Dark Horse's Conan comic, as well as the word balloons are all little edgy here to give you the feeling that he's talking in a barbaric accent, whatever language he's speaking in. So Conan is being lured to his doom, but what kind of doom is she bringing him into? Well, she's bringing him to her brothers. It's a trap, and the brothers, her brothers, are gonna get him. And these are the brothers in the Dark Horse version of the story. I mean, they're just fantastic. And I have to say, Nord's version of these characters here are they certainly beat Barry Smith's. They're just they're just horrific monsters, beautifully drawn. Uh, it it's great, and so we have the Frost Giant's daughter saying, "Brothers, I have brought you a man to slay. Take his heart, that we may lay it smoking on our father's board." But she got more than she bargained for when she brought Conan into this, because Conan isn't just gonna like let these guys get him. No, Conan's gonna fight, and Conan immediately chops one of the brothers' legs off, and we just have this. I mean, just look at that artwork. We have this great battle with the brothers, and no surprise to us Conan fans, Conan wins the battle. This doesn't surprise us, but it shocks the Frost Giant's daughter. This is not something that she expected. And of course, Conan is infuriated by now, and she thinks, okay, I underestimated this guy. I could be in real trouble. So she takes off, and the chase continues. And at one point, he catches her, and then she slips away, and he just has the little bit of cloth that she's wearing. Otherwise, she's pretty much naked. And at one point, she says, "Ymir, oh father, save me." And he does. And so we have this scene where she's taken away by her father, leaving Conan alone, cold and confused. You know, poor fella. He's had a rough day, Conan has. And that's just wonderful. The artwork in this is fabulous. And then Conan passes out, and he wakes up, and his fellow soldiers are surrounding him. They got to the battle late because they were ambushed. And they trailed Conan a long way over the snow. And the leader says, "In Ymir's name, Conan, why did you wander off into the wastes of the north? Had a blizzard come up?" And Conan's like, I saw a woman. And he tells his tale. He tells the story. And they think, you must have got hit in the head, man, because that's a crazy ass story. But this old guy says, no, not so. It was Atali, the daughter of Ymir, the frost giant. To fields of the dead she comes and shows herself to the dying. When a boy I saw her myself, when I lay half slain, my skull cracked on the bloody field of Woolraven. I saw her walk among the dead, her body gleaming like ivory, her hair unbelievably bright in the moonlight. I lay and howled like a dying dog because I could not crawl after her. And so he tells how this woman lures people to their doom. But this other soldier is like, bah, old Gorm's mind has been touched since the wound at Woolraven. Conan was delirious from the battle. Look how his helmet is dented. The blows addled his mind. It was brain fever he followed into the wastes. And Conan's like, you know what? Maybe. Everything was pretty weird. That could be what happened. But then at the very last panel, we see that in his hand, he still carries that little bit of the Frost Giant's daughter's clothing. The one little bit of clothing that she had. He has it in his hand. And so he knows that the story is true. It's just a short little great Conan story. One of the best Conan stories that Robert E. Howard wrote. Just a short little thing. and you can adapt it perfectly into a one-issue story. Here, they give you the backstory of that, and then they tell you what happens immediately after that. And that's what Dark Horse did. They did the same thing that Marvel Comics did in the original run, where they would have an adaptation of a Robert E. Howard story surrounded by all these other stories, giving you the backstory of what happened. And it's wonderful. This is just a beautiful version of this particular story. It's been done, like I said, a few times. I think this almost equals the original Marvel version. Or it might. It's a matter of taste, I suppose. It's certainly beautifully done, as so many of these Dark Horse issues were. I sincerely hope that Heroic Signature and Titan Books end up reprinting these the way they've reprinted the Marvel issues in omnibuses would be great. I'll take them any way they want to reprint them. But yeah, these deserve to be reprinted. This stuff is too good to be out of print. So there you go. That was The Frost Giant's Daughter, the Dark Horse version. That's all I have to say today, Roger. Do you have anything to add? No, his mind has been ensorcelled by The Frost Giant's Daughter. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.